Imagine a developer at your company builds a simple background script to check your supply chain inventory.
Right. Something super common.
Exactly. And it works perfectly. I mean, everyone loves it. But then at the end of the month, the CFO calls you into their office in an absolute panic because that one little background script just generated a $22,000 Microsoft bill.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are dissecting a monumental transition playing out right now across the tech landscape in mid-2026, which is the Microsoft consumption economy.
It is a massive shift.
Our mission today is to really decode this move from a traditional, predictable software licensing model to this hybrid SaaS 3.0 reality. So whether you are a CIO managing a nine-figure IT budget or you're just trying to understand the future of AI economics, we're unpacking the trends, the news, and the strategic insights you really need to navigate the shift without totally bankrupting your department.
And that $22,000 surprise you mentioned, that is happening to companies right now, today.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah, Microsoft is fundamentally altering the baseline of enterprise software. Basically, they're systematically transferring the financial risk of heavy AI compute from their balance sheet.
Straight over to yours.
Exactly. Straight to the enterprise customer. I mean, in the old model, you paid a flat fee. It was like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Right. You bought the license, you ate all the software you wanted.
Right. And if your employees used a tool heavily, the vendor ate that compute cost. But today, it's an a la carte menu. Microsoft is uncapping their revenue potential by aligning your bill directly with how hard their servers have to work. Every time your AI eats data, you get a bill.
Okay, so let's start with the baseline here because we really need to understand the structural change before we get to the new currencies and the billing. When a company buys a $30 a month Microsoft 365 Copilot license today, does that mean the old per-user model is just completely dead?
Well, no, it's not dead, but its function has totally changed. That per-user license has basically become an entry ticket.
Just to get in the door.
Exactly. You still pay the $30 per user per month. But that seat merely unlocks the door to the AI ecosystem. It gives you identity, basic access, a security boundary.
Right.
But the heavy variable work that your employee's AI agent actually performs behind that door, that is now a metered cost.
See, I look at that and think, if I am a business owner and I already paid $30 a month for my employee to have this Copilot seat, why am I paying again when they actually use it? Isn't that just a massive double dip?
It definitely looks like double dipping on the surface.
Yeah.
And believe me, procurement teams push back on this all the time. But you have to look at the mechanical reality of generative AI. We have moved way beyond simple chat assistants.
We're talking autonomous agents now.
Right. Autonomous workflows, multi-step reasoning. These new capabilities carry massive, highly variable compute costs, specifically around inference and tokens.
Okay, let's define those terms for a second because they get thrown around a lot in the sources. What is actually happening under the hood when we talk about tokens and inference?
Sure. So think of a token as a fragment of a word or a tiny piece of data. When you ask an AI to read a document, it chops that document up into thousands of these tokens.
Okay.
And inference is the actual computational math the AI performs to process those tokens and predict the correct response.
So if I'm just having it draft a quick, 3-sentence email, that requires processing a tiny handful of tokens.
Yes, very low inference cost.
Huh.
But if you tell an autonomous agent to spend 6 hours analyzing 6 months of internal supply chain data,
Oh, wow.
and then identifying anomalies and formatting a predictive report, the inference required for that is astronomical.
Right, that makes sense.
It just cannot rationally cost Microsoft the same amount of server electricity and processing power as your 3-sentence email. They're repricing the ceiling of their addressable market by charging for the engine's output, not just giving you the keys to the car.
Okay, so the buffet is officially closed. You're ordering a la carte, which really leads us to the mechanics of how this is billed. Because I assume Microsoft isn't sending you a bill for, 6 billion individual tokens, right?
No, they are not. Because tracking raw OpenAI token pricing across an entire enterprise would be an absolute accounting nightmare.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so Microsoft is abstracting all that complex token math into one universal AI currency, which they call Copilot Credits.
Copilot Credits, got it.
And they pool these credits at what is called the tenant level, meaning they are shared across your company's entire secure instance of the Microsoft Cloud rather than being tied to just one single user.
And from what the sources show, this currency applies to almost everything now. It spans Copilot Cowork, Copilot Studio, Work IQ APIs.
Which are the tools developers use to build custom internal intelligence apps. Yeah.
Right, and even the Power Platform, which handles your automated workflows. And the baseline pay-as-you-go rate for this currency is exactly 1 penny, just 1 cent per Copilot credit.
Exactly, 1 penny. And the transition to this penny per credit system is already locked in.
Yeah.
I mean, back on September 1st, 2025, Microsoft already retired their legacy messages billing metric in Copilot Studio.
Right, but the real critical date for organizations to prepare for is coming up on November 1st, 2026.
That is the totally unforgiving deadline. On that date, all legacy AI builder capacity add-ons and seeded credits are being irrevocably removed.
Okay, let's pause on seeded credits for a second, because those were basically the free allowances of compute power that Microsoft used to bundle into older licenses just to get people to try the tools.
Precisely. And organizations built thousands of background automations, assuming that compute would just remain free forever.
Oh, no.
Yeah. On November 1st, 2026, there is no automatic conversion.
Right.
If you haven't migrated those workloads to the new Copilot credit billing model, those automations will just break. They will stop working entirely.
Just hard stop. Wow, okay, so a credit is a penny. That sounds manageable on its face. But the volume of credits burned depends entirely on the complexity of the task, specifically within Copilot Cowork. And Cowork is Microsoft's new framework for treating AI as a delegated worker, not just a chatbot.
Right. Cowork is designed to take on those long-running, multi-step tasks, and Microsoft's own planning architecture categorizes these tasks. So a light task.
Like having the AI draft a weekly status report based on your calendar or whatever.
Oh, exactly. Something like that might cost between 70 and 200 credits.
So 70 cents to $2 per task.
But if you delegate a heavy task, say synthesizing a massive data set into a strategic leadership analysis, that costs 1,500 credits or more.
Wait.
That is $15 for a single click.
That $15 click is where IT directors are going to lose sleep because, I mean, if you have an employee just casually running heavy tasks, they could burn through $50 before lunch. How does a company possibly justify that level of microtransaction cost?
Well, it requires a fundamental pivot in how we evaluate software.
Right.
You are no longer tracking an IT expense. You are tracking operational efficiency.
Okay, walk me through that.
Market analysts model this using a standard labor offset. Let's take a senior financial analyst making $75 an hour.
Pretty standard corporate rate for that role, yeah.
So they execute a medium task in Cowork that costs $5, which is 500 credits. That task autonomously completes a data reconciliation that used to take the analyst an hour and a half of manual, tedious work.
Right.
In raw time value, 1.5 hours of their time is worth $112.50. You subtract the $5 compute cost, and your net return on investment for that single task is over $100.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge that math. Is it actually a $100 return? Just because the AI saved that analyst an hour and a half doesn't magically put $100 back in the company's Cloak account.
That's a very fair point.
I mean, that employee might just use that saved time to go grab a coffee, chat in the break room, or just browse the internet. How does a CFO actually track that the $5 was well spent?
You've hit on the most critical friction point in this entire economy. You are entirely correct. Theoretical time savings do not equal realized business value.
Right, because it's soft savings.
Exactly. If you spend $15 to save a worker an hour, and they don't redirect that hour into high-value revenue-generating activity, you are just bleeding cash.
Yeah.
It forces companies to stop looking at AI as a magic wand and start managing it like a true operational workflow. You have to measure the output of the human-AI partnership, not just the speed of the task.
And that operational mindset becomes even more critical when a company decides to build its own AI agents, right? Because this brings us to a radical new reality for technical teams, which is that your software architecture now directly dictates your financial bill.
This is a profound shift. I mean, historically, developers were incentivized to build the smartest, most complex, most future-proof system possible because the flat-rate license covered the overhead.
You already paid for it.
Right. But in the consumption economy, over-engineering is a financial liability.
And the menu prices for designing an agent in Copilot Studio are just wild. Like a classic answer, which is just a deterministic, pre-written, scripted response costs 1 credit.
Right.
A generative answer, where the agent uses a large language model to compose a custom response, costs 2 credits. Tenant graph grounding, which is when the AI searches through your company's internal emails and SharePoint files to find an answer, is 10 credits. And an autonomous trigger is a staggering 25 credits.
And keep in mind, you are charged for every single component in that flow, every single time the agent runs.
Why is an autonomous trigger so incredibly expensive compared to everything else? I mean, 25 credits just to start a task.
It's because of how it taxes the infrastructure. See, when a human clicks a button to ask a question, the compute spins up, answers, and spins down. It's fast. Okay.
But an autonomous trigger requires the AI to maintain a continuous passive state of listening to your environment. It has to constantly evaluate conditions.
Like waiting for an email.
Yes, waiting for a specific type of vendor email to arrive or a database flag to change before it wakes up and acts. That continuous background monitoring burns significant server capacity.
It's like building a car, but realizing after you put the engine in that every time you use the turn signal, it costs you a dime.
It is exactly like that. And the starkest way to understand this is to look at a comparison widely cited by platform owners. They call it the tale of two patterns.
Right. Let's break that down.
So pattern A is an internal knowledge agent. It is built for your employees who already hold that $30 entry ticket, the M365 Copilot license. Because they are licensed, Microsoft zero rates several features.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so the classic answers, the generative answers, even the graph grounding are effectively subsidized by their seat license. The variable cost per run is often zero.
Okay, so pattern A is safe and predictable, but what about pattern B? Pattern B is an autonomous, external supply chain agent. It interacts with unlicensed vendors via a web portal, and it runs in the background.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Every single run requires that autonomous trigger for 25 credits. It uses graph grounding for 10 credits to check inventory. It calls premium reasoning models to evaluate shipping times. The typical cost per run, 74 credits, 74 cents.
Okay, I mean, 74 cents sounds like pocket change, but if that automated agent processes 1,000 vendor updates a day,
Which is very common.
that is $740 a day. That is the $22,000 monthly bill I mentioned at the very start of this deep dive for a single agent.
$22,000 a month for pattern B compared to basically zero for pattern A. This is exactly why architecture is now economics. A developer cannot just throw a heavy reasoning model at every problem anymore.
They can't afford to.
Exactly. They have to actively design for cost. They must use cheap, classic logic flows wherever possible and basically act as a bouncer for the expensive AI.
Right.
Only letting a task through to the 100-credit reasoning models when it is strictly necessary.
Wow. Okay, so we've established that the thinking part of AI, the reasoning, the agent actions, the task completion, is metered per action using Copilot credits. But an AI is pretty much useless without data. These agents are searching through vast lakes of corporate information. How is the data side of the equation built? Because Microsoft treats data storage and analytics entirely differently than AI reasoning.
They do, and mixing them up will absolutely destroy a budget. For the data estate, Microsoft relies on a platform called Fabric. Instead of charging you a penny every time an agent runs a SQL query or refreshes a Power BI dashboard, Fabric pools all of those analytics workloads together.
Okay.
And monetizes them through capacity units, or CUs, which are packaged into what they call FSQs.
Right. An FSPU is essentially a specific size of compute capacity that you rent, and they scale massively. I mean, the sources note you can start with an F2, but they go all the way up to an F2048, which costs over $268,000 a month on pay-as-you-go.
It gets huge. To understand the separation, let's step away from the software analogies for a minute. Think of this new economy like a city's power grid.
Okay, I like that.
The $30 M365 license is the baseline connection fee you pay to the utility company just to have power lines attached to your house. Copilot credits are the meter spinning on the side of your house. You pay for the exact electricity you use when you turn on the AI lights.
That makes sense.
But Fabric is entirely different. Fabric is like renting an entire dedicated power substation for an industrial factory. You pay for the maximum capacity of the substation, regardless of whether your factory is running at full speed or completely shut down.
Okay, so within Fabric, I am buying a rate of compute. Why do they force companies to buy massive, expensive data substations instead of just charging a penny per query like they do with Copilot credits?
Because of the nature of analytics tools, like a Spark job. A Spark job is a distributed data processing engine, and it can scan and analyze millions of rows of data across multiple servers simultaneously.
That sounds intense.
It is. Those analytics workloads are inherently bursty. A data science team might trigger a Spark job that requires an enormous spike of compute for 3 minutes, and then they run nothing for the rest of the day. If Microsoft charged per transaction for data crunching, the bills would be wildly erratic, and queries would constantly fail from lack of resources.
So if I rent a specific size substation, like a specific SKU, what happens if my Spark job demands more power than my substation can handle? Does the query just break?
This is where Fabric introduces a really vital mathematical mechanism called smoothing and bursting. It separates compute isolation from memory limits to prevent your queries from failing. Microsoft actually allows your operations to temporarily burst, meaning you use more compute than you actually provisioned in your SKU.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they smooth the accounting of that burst over a specific time window, so you don't instantly hit a financial or technical wall.
How wide is that window?
It depends on the task. For interactive queries, like a CEO clicking a filter on a live dashboard, they smooth the compute spike over a 5-minute window. But for massive background jobs, they smooth it over a full 24 hours. They essentially let you borrow against your future idle capacity.
But there has to be a limit, right? You can't just borrow forever.
Right, you can't. If you exhaust that smoothed window, progressive throttling kicks in. First, they delay your interactive queries by 20 seconds. If your system keeps demanding power, they eventually reject queries altogether until the time window resets.
Okay, so the strategic rule of thumb for you listening is this.
Hmm.
If you are looking at a discrete AI interaction, like an agent doing a task, that is Copilot credits, the meter on the house.
Yep.
But if you are looking at shared data crunching, like data warehousing, Power BI, SQL, that is Fabric capacity and it's the substation.
And you really have to monitor both constantly.
Which brings us to the most urgent question for IT leadership. We have variable Copilot credits running into the thousands in dollars. We have massive Fabric CUs running into the hundreds of thousands. Even standard utilities are jumping on the consumption train now. Like M365 backup is now 15 cents per gigabyte per month. High volume email is metered. How on earth does an enterprise govern this without going bankrupt?
It requires a fundamental evolution in FinOps, or financial operations.
Mm-hmm.
The CIO cannot treat AI and data like traditional software entitlements anymore. You can't just buy it in January and ignore it until renewal season.
Right.
You have to treat it exactly like raw cloud infrastructure spend.
And there's a specific framework recommended by practitioners to rule this out, starting with a showback phase. What does that actually look like?
During the first 60 days of deploying these AI tools, you don't actually charge the individual departments for their consumption. Instead, IT simulates the monthly invoices. You walk into the head of marketing's office and say, here's a simulated bill for the Copilot credits your custom campaign agents consumed this month.
Oh man, it is essentially a financial jump scare, but with training wheels. You show them that $22,000 bill for their poorly designed supply chain agent so they can fix their architecture before the company actually has to pay for it.
Exactly. It forces business units to confront how their technical decisions impact the company's bottom line. Once they optimize their workflows and the behavior stabilizes, then you shift to actual financial chargeback, where the marketing department's own budget pays for the AI they consume.
But tracking this requires dedicated tools. I mean, you can't manage a consumption economy on a spreadsheet.
No, definitely not.
And Microsoft has built native dashboards for this. For Copilot credits, you have the Microsoft 365 Cost Management Dashboard. For Fabric, there is the Fabric Capacity Metrics app. These tools let administrators set hard caps, create budgets, and trigger alerts before the spend spirals out of control.
And administrators must actively configure those tools. I mean, Microsoft is aware of the budget panic this shift could cause. For example, Copilot Cowork, the system that can execute those expensive $15 heavy tasks, is shipped off by default.
Really?
Yes, IT literally has to go into the tenant settings and authorize usage-based billing before an employee can even access it.
It is a safety net, but it's a net you have to manually string up yourself. Now, we have to issue a massive warning for a very specific segment of our listeners. If you work in government, defense, or highly regulated industries, you are likely operating in GCC, GCC High, or DoD environments. For those unfamiliar, GCC stands for Government Community Cloud. These are highly secure, isolated server environments built specifically to meet federal compliance. Does this new consumption economy apply to them today?
The reality for the sovereign cloud is a stark multi-year lag. What we have been discussing today, the granular Copilot credits, the PAG meters, the Fabric SQs, is largely a commercial cloud reality. Usage-based billing is currently not supported in GCC or GCC High. Fabric is entirely unavailable in those environments right now, and there is no publicly confirmed roadmap for when parity will even be achieved.
So if they cannot utilize the consumption economy, How are defense contractors and government agencies buying AI capacity?
They are forced to rely on legacy prepaid capacity packs, and they are paying a massive premium for the privilege of that security isolation.
How big of a premium?
Well, a standard Copilot Studio credit pack costs roughly $200 a month in the commercial cloud. In GCC High, that exact same capacity pack costs around $337.50.
That is nearly a 70% markup. So for our listeners in the public sector, the consumption economy is eventually coming, but it is going to arrive late, and the transition is going to be incredibly expensive.
That is the strategic takeaway for regulated industries right there. Exploit the predictability of your current prepaid models while you still have them. But you must architect your future agents knowing that granular metered billing is eventually going to arrive in your environment too.
To wrap this up, the transition to SaaS 3.0 requires an entirely new set of muscles for IT, finance, and development teams. The organizations that thrive will be the ones that view their technical architecture as a financial instrument.
You have to monitor the power grid. You pay the connection fee with your M365 seats. You monitor the meter on the house with Copilot Credits. And you carefully provision your industrial substations with Fabric.
But here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. Everything we just explored is the reality for 2026. But market analysts are already forecasting the next evolution of this model for 2028 and beyond, and it is a wild concept called outcome-based monetization.
This is the logical endpoint of autonomous AI. In a few years, Microsoft may shift away from metering the underlying the tokens and the credits. Instead, they will simply charge you a flat fee for a realized business outcome.
Wait, really?
Yes, you won't pay for the compute required to analyze a lead. You will pay a bounty for every successfully qualified lead the AI generates. You will pay for every customer service ticket successfully resolved without human intervention.
And that is exactly what I want you to mull over today. If a tech giant starts charging your company based on the business outcome achieved by an AI, how is your organization going to independently measure what counts as a success? Because if the AI is executing the work and the underlying AI platform is the one deciding if the work was successful enough to bill you for it, isn't the AI essentially marking its own homework?
It creates a profound governance dilemma. I mean, the CFO is no longer auditing a software invoice. They're essentially auditing an autonomous employee's performance review thousands of times a second to see if the vendor deserves to be paid.
The buffet is closed. You're ordering a la carte now. Make sure you know exactly what is on the menu, how much it costs, and who is actually doing the ordering. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.